Thank you. And thank you for Eyes Open Security for inviting me to, or allowing me to speak today at the conference. It's a great opportunity and an honor to be here speaking to all of you today, even though remotely. Unfortunately, I couldn't be in Bonajo today. So my name is Tomslin Samme-Nlar. And I am a cybersecurity researcher, and basically the research director at GIFONA Digital Foundation, which is actually based in Cameroon. Today I'll be speaking about a research we did in 2020 on enterprises, application security in enterprises in Cameroon. And so I hope today I can share with you all what we learned from that research, interviewing a couple of companies in Douala and Cameroon, Douala and Yaoundé. Basically, this is the plan for today. I hope I'll be able to go through these and have time for some questions at the end. Let's jump right into it. Just before I start, I thought I'll just tell you a bit about Gefona Digital Foundation, because I'm pretty sure very few, or if not, know about this organization, which we started back in 2019 in Yaoundé. We basically are a non-for-profit organization that aims to contribute to the development of the digital development of Africa through original and policy relevant research. So we do a couple of research in the area of digital space, and we sometimes have a bias towards cybersecurity, but we do have researchers that look at the digital economy in general and some economic aspects of it as well. Our website is gifona.org if you would like to visit it and read more about it. So our first agenda for today is the questions we wanted to answer in this research, which I spoke to you about, understanding the enterprise security, application security in Cameroon. Some of you might already know that in 2017, the National Agency for Information and Communications Technologies, that's ANTIC, identified and published some cyber attacks on Cameroon organizations and Cameroonians in general between 2015 and 2017. And some common ones were credit card fraud. There was scamming, which was valued at up to 4 billion francs CFA in Cameroon. There was identity theft. Apparently, up to 182 government officials had been identities had been stolen, and of course, information security system sabotage. They reported 7 government websites sabotaged, and we know malware is obviously there. Up to 23% of government websites were infected. So this didn't give too much information about the enterprises. So we looked at this and asked ourselves 3 questions. How does the threat attack surface and trend in Cameroon look like in outside the government, in enterprises, and how are organizations ready for these attacks? How are the companies planning to deter these attacks, and how does the regulation look like in Cameroon to help companies with this? So with those questions, we did a documentary research to understand the ecosystem, and we did publish that report on our website. You can find that on our website as well. And thereafter, we organized some formal and informal discussions with key actors in the cyberspace of Cameroon, and just to understand some perceived trends. And based on these findings, we developed a questionnaire which we went out to companies and asked them to fill. So this approach, we only looked at companies that had a staff size of over 100 employees. And we had 138 responses. Now, this included both the private sector and the government institutions as well. So that was our definition of an enterprise. It was the size of the company, and it was both private and public institutions. So what did we learn from those questions? Today, I have tried to summarize the report into two areas. But the report itself is much longer, and I'll invite all of you to read it. You can download it on our website. But I try to summarize our findings in two sections, two areas: the attack surface and the readiness of the companies themselves. How ready are they? But first, what are their attack surface? Where are the attacks coming from and hitting them? So I'll go through a couple of slides now, looking at some of the things we found. And first, we'll look at what we found regarding the attack surface. So what we looked at was what we learned first was that up to 90% of companies did consider applications to be essential for their business. That is, whatever they did, their businesses will not operate without applications. So that meant applications were definitely very critical for their businesses, because this is important to know before we know whether there's any need to secure them. Then we asked them. Obviously, everyone knows that computing today is moving to the cloud. So we asked them what they thought was strategically important for them in terms of all the technologies that were available at the time and trending. And you can see that the majority believe that moving to the cloud was most strategically important, even though you can see automation also a bit high there. Big data analysis and artificial intelligence are all seen as important, but the biggest chunk thought moving to the cloud was key to their business. So with that information and background, we began asking some security questions. And one of those questions we asked was, what parts of managing your application do you find the most challenging? We were, or difficult when migrating to the cloud? And we were it was interesting to find that the majority thought that maintaining security, policy, and compliance was the most challenging thing. And so that tells security folks, security professionals, the gap that exists in the industry, in the private sector, both private and government, in fact. So the next question we also asked them was, when they are deploying an application, what was their most important concern? Now, as you can see, security again is the biggest concern for most companies. So if you thought that there was no opportunity for you in the market as a security engineer or a security professional, whichever area you are in, whether it's risk compliance or auditing, you can clearly see that a lot of companies in Cameroon are concerned about security. So please consider helping them. Then we also asked, well, these are some of other things we found regarding the attack surface, and that was the first. The one of those was that the majority of enterprise applications and data threats were coming from web application attacks, and when in later slides, when we look at organizational readiness, I'll speak about why I believe, why we thought this was one of the reasons the web application attacks. So when we get there, I'll bring this up again. Just put a mental note about that first point there about web application attacks. Then the other one was that the vast majority of respondents are really fearful of data loss or data leak as a result of an exploit. Well, this was a good thing to see actually for us, because it meant that companies actually think about their customers and their not only their customers' data, but also of course their company's secrets and what keeps them competitive in the market. So they want to protect. They probably don't know how to do it, or they don't have enough information, but they want to. They are concerned. And so that was a good thing, at least, to know. And the other thing we found was that, again, those two lead to the third one, which is that security was becoming a concern for companies in Cameroon in 2020. So now with these things we found in terms of the attack surface, we then proceeded to ask some questions about how ready were they to protect themselves, to deter these attacks, and recover from these attacks. So this was something interesting. We found that when it comes to security readiness, we found that only 60% of companies had a web application firewall. Now, remember they said applications were very important for their business, and web application attacks are the most common attacks, but they don't have any web application firewalls. So now that as security professionals, you can see that there is a huge gap there of what your concerns are and how you're protecting your infrastructure. But what we thought, well, before I go to what we think is the cause of this, the second thing is that only 8% actually of companies in Cameroon performed penetration testing in 2020. Now, that is a really low number. really low number considering the applications that they are using applications. So we think from our analysis of this data that this points to the fact that the majority of enterprises still focus on security at the network level. So they still have the mindset of periphery security. And we think this is what is leading to these findings, like we see here, where there's no web, few do web application security, because many did say they use VPNs. So you can see network security again is big, but no application security or other types of security for that matter. So I'll just move to the next slide. The other thing we found when we asked what concerns they had or how ready they were in protecting customer data, it was good to see that they consider customer data very important. And as a cybersecurity advocate, for me, I'm always on the side of the customer and the user. I like to see that the customer's data is valued, and their confidentiality, the security of that data is important to companies. Even though, unfortunately, we found that companies do not report any breaches to customers in Cameroon. They, however, do report breaches to Antigua. Most of them said they report breaches to Antigua. Some said they report breaches to the police, but little or none reported the breaches to customers. Well, I understand, because the law on the 2020 law on cybersecurity doesn't really require companies to do that, and so that was understandable to see companies doing that. So we thought that that was an area of policy that policymakers need to think about reporting breaches to customers, especially ones that cause significant harm or financial loss to the customers. And I've touched a bit about this, but as far as regulations and standards go, we found that Antigua regulation and the ISO 27001 standard were quite the two popular ones being used by Cameroonian companies. So you can see the distribution over there in the pie chart. But yeah, Antigua, obviously, I'm not surprised actually to see Antigua being at 39%, because there are fines in the laws from Antigua. So companies will not want to pay those fines. So they want to comply to that regulation. And then finally, it was also great to see that only very few companies do not use encryption. I was like, yay, on this one, because encryption is the one of the things that companies get wrong and cause data to be leaked or compromised. So we didn't get information whether how they encrypted, or whether they encrypted at rest or in transit, but we were just happy to see that some sort of encryption was being used. However, many were using self-signed certificates, which means that, yeah, I know Antique promotes the use of Antique issued certificates quite a lot. We found that some companies still use self-signed certificates. And then this, only 26% of organizations hire a security staff. I think this is due to lack of awareness. So we hope that the next time we go to do this survey again, we'll see some improvement in this number. We saw that many companies just use their existing staff, IT staff, to look at security, even without any security knowledge or understanding. So um, for us, we thought that was one of the reasons why network security was being used by most companies, not the other areas of security. Um, yeah. So based on these findings, we wrote a blog. I will share the blog with all of you. I'll share the slides with you guys, and on the slides, the links to the blog and the report is there so that you can download them. We looked at those findings and came up with four key recommendations for policy recommendation, both for the companies and for policymakers in Cameroon. And the first was that more training and awareness absolutely needs to be done. For people responsible for securing the organization's infrastructure, uh, uh, because it looks like that there is a gap. There is a gap between what securing the network is and actually securing the enterprise is. So other areas of security don't seem to be looked at by most companies in Cameroon. In the area of breach notification, I already touched on this earlier. There is opportunity for policymakers to work with the industry to develop optimal customer and user-centric policy and privacy security policies. And then the third is that today's and future network architectures which take advantage of cloud technologies and Internet of Things, need to realize that there is no longer any periphery. There isn't. And you need to secure every point, every touch point of users, whether it's their mobile phones, their laptops, sensors, or application APIs. Everything needs to be security needs to think about all those points that are touching their enterprise. Not the periphery is going to the end user devices now, and it gets worse when it goes to the cloud as well. And in general, the existing laws seem to have had a positive impact, we think, on the cybersecurity posture of Cameroon. And we also think that's because of the hefty fines that the law on cybersecurity and privacy, the 2020 law that is, has defined. However, the laws do not consider, we think that the laws do not consider that there are smaller companies in Cameroon. In fact, those would be most of the companies. They are small, and they operate information systems as defined by the law, but do not have the kind of budget to protect required to properly secure their information systems as the law requires them to do. Excuse me. And so we think that this is where a national strategy on cybersecurity might help define how the government plans to encourage or incentivize the private sector to comply, even when they do not have those kind of huge budgets, and maybe even find other policy solutions on how small companies can actually comply as well, maybe with help from maybe larger organizations can provide security as a service to these smaller companies to help them secure their systems. And finally, it will be helpful. And this is again comes to the security strategy for the country. We think with a security strategy for the country, it will classifying companies by sector or by size will make the law better, because you don't put the same fine for a telecommunications company like MTN equal to a small hotel just because they have a couple of servers to provide internet and their systems, their hotel systems or booking systems. So the law needs to balance between this difference in size of companies, and also it should define critical infrastructure, so that it's clear which sectors in the economy are information, critical information systems, so that you focus on those complying with those heavy fines and be a bit lenient on the smaller ones. Yes, that is in a nutshell what we found in our research, and I think we have 10 minutes for any questions you might have on this. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Thank you for the great presentation. We have some questions for you.
Yes, please, go ahead.
The question is, the first question was, do the company in Cameroon take the matters of app security in heart?
Sorry,
Then,
repeat the question.
Do the Cameroonian company take in heart the matter of application security?
In-house, you mean?
In heart. Do they care for that the application security?
All right. Yes. I mean, you could clearly see in the findings that they do care for it. However, they do not have the processes today to properly secure it, and that's possible due to the fact that that lack of awareness that you actually need security experts to do this for you, not just any IT engineer or IT professional. You actually need someone who understands security to look at the application security, because a network engineer, for example, will only think about network security by default. So they won't look at application security, they won't look at endpoint security, they won't look at storage security. So yes, they definitely do, but they do not have the processes today to secure it.
Okay, I'll give you another question.
Yes, please.
Mr. Tom, the question is in French. I hope you can sort out the case.
you might have to help me translate it, but let's hear it.
Okay. So you presented the findings of your research.
Yes.
Can you give us the total respondent, the size, the sample size of your respondents?
The sample size. Sorry.
You came out with this with those findings.
Okay. So our target was to interview 500, get 500 responses. We got, I'll just take you, bear with me for a moment. I'll bring this up. I think I might have gone through that very fast and we missed it. Yeah, there we go. So we had 138 responses from companies in Douala and Cameroon. So it's from this number of respondents that we came up with this result.
Okay, the person is satisfied. So, what advice can you give to the young fellow who are software engineer here? What can they do to implement some basic securities aspect in the application or in the software, in-house software they are developing?
Well, the first thing is that security should be by default. You should develop your applications with security by default. So you have to think about scalability in case there was a denial of service, distributed denial of service attack. That's availability of those applications. Will they survive such an attack? And remember that most of the attacks are web application attacks. So if one application server goes down, do you have can it scale to a second or more applications to keep your applications online even during an attack? But like I said, best practice is design your applications with security in mind, so that it's not an afterthought. I know that there is there is a tendency, or you may want to ignore security because you have a little budget, but the benefits of designing your application with security by default, I think, outweighs um, uh, circumventing the security and deploying your application without one.
Okay, thank you, Tom. The another question is, can we have the report, the result of your research available to download from your website?
Yes.
Or the to get it?
If I paste the link on chat, will they get it?
Yes, we will share. We will share. For sure, we will share.
All right. Sure. I will do that, and the link of the report is in the chat now, so you can get it from there.
Okay. Thanks so much.
And the blog too I've pasted the link to the blog as well.
So another question for you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Tom, for the presentation. Quick question. Since only 26% of your respondents actually had a security expert, I'm wondering who in the company was actually responding to your questions? What role did they have in the company?
Thanks very much for that question, because we did ask them to tell which role they had in the company. So we asked the IT head of departments we asked if there was a CISO, for a CISO to respond, or a lead engineer in the company to respond. Those were the profiles of the respondents we were after in the company.
Okay. Okay, another question.
Yes.
Hello, Tomslin. This is Isaac. En fait, c'est une clarification. Je suis un chercheur aussi à GIFONA avec Tomslin. Donc, la méthodologie de recherche est disponible sur le rapport de la recherche. Donc, lorsque Tomslin a envoyé le lien, si vous allez sur gifona.org, vous allez le trouver, vous allez sur le lien. Et là, on a spécifié la méthodologie de la recherche. Comme Tomslin a mentionné, ça, c'était une recherche spécifiée sur des entreprises de plus de 100 employés. Ça fait une population totale d'environ 500. Donc là, on a obtenu plus de 130 réponses, qui est très au-dessus de toutes les formes d'échantillonnage que vous pouvez avoir. Et comme Tomslin a mentionné, lorsqu'on posait les questions, on avait un ratio de 1 sur 5, si je ne me trompe pas. 1 pour les managers, et CISO et above, et aussi les ingénieurs directement sur le plan opérationnel. Donc, vous aurez tous les détails avec la formule qui a été utilisée pour le sampling, pour l'échantillonnage, dans le rapport que Tomslin a présenté, qui est disponible sur le site gefona.org.
Yes, Tom, it was.
Yes, I just wanted to add that final word for me is that we have done a similar research for West and Central Africa, and we will be. It was funded by F5 Networks, an American security company. So we'll be publishing the results of that finding in November. So you should look out for that as well.
Oh, thanks very well. Thanks. And another question. Are you ready for another question?
Did you say you have another question?
Yes.
Est-ce qu'il y a des implications du SSD parmi les 740 entreprises qui auraient de l'entreprise de l'application?
She's asking if among the company who responded to the questionnaire, so do they
Yes.
have a company specialized in USSD? USSD.
Yes, because yes, there were some. I cannot. The names of the companies were meant to be they're supposed to be anonymous, but yes, there was some with USSD.
And the person asking what is the critical. So the critical security point concerning USSD application.
So unfortunately, we didn't ask them what that question, like she has framed it, as in what was the specific security for the application. Rather, we asked we needed obviously to ask the question that in a way that covers many more sectors. So it was not very specific to USSD, and so they didn't answer. None of them answered that specific, like she would like to know, unfortunately.
Okay, we think we are okay, and we are. Oh, we. Hello, Tom. Are you getting me?
Yes, I still can. Yes.
So there's no more question, and we are happy for the findings of your research that you share with us here. And I wish you the best for the rest. In fact, we wish you the best for the rest. And just we are waiting for the research, the result of that research in Western Africa You say you publish in November, the coming November.
Yes,
So
we will.
thank you. And I want the public to give thanks for the knowledge.
Thank you.
So, asante sana. See you next time.
Karibu.
Mhm.